Good evening and welcome to the Warren. It is Tuesday, September the 21st, and the time is 6:03 p.m. The high school cafetorium and live streaming available at warrencityschools.org.
And Mrs. Lamperos.
Here. Okay, we have no need for agenda item 3, which is an executive session, so we'll move right into agenda item number 4, which is communications. Mr. Shiro.
I have no communications this evening. They'll be covered during the superintendent's reports.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, motion carries. Agenda item number 6, the treasurer's report. Mrs. Scortino.
I just wanted to go over tonight, we are approving our fiscal year 22 permanent appropriations. And in July, or actually June, we pressed a temporary appropriation resolution for 2022. There has been a little bit of a change to it determined by the change in school funding formula. And what I mean by that is since the new funding formula, you are being funded for students that are being educated at your district versus previously we were getting funding for all students, and then if they went to a community school, they would deduct that from our funding. Mm-hmm. Now our funding is just strictly based upon the students that we are educating. And so with that being said, our expenses decreased because we no longer have to report the community school deduction, the scholarship transfer for Ed Choice, open enrollment deductions, okay? So our expenditures in the general fund decreased from about 75 million in our temporary appropriation measure to just shy of 63 million in this appropriation measure. And on the flip side, of course, our revenues would decrease because we, won't be getting funding for those kids either. So just to let you know, I did a little analysis based upon where we are currently with our enrollment data, which has not been updated yet. That'll get updated in October. Mm-hmm. But it's looking like we're about $2 million additional with state funding than we were previously, which was what was pretty much anticipated. We'll have a better look once we get enrollment data more solid. So overall, our general fund, we are appropriating approximately 63 million, and what our available resources is 113 million. So we are definitely staying under what's available. Overall, the total available resources through our general fund and all other funds, including grants, is approximately $206 million. We are appropriating $141 million approximately, just to give you an idea of what we have available versus what we are planning to spend. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
So you said 2 million additional, that's after the difference in subtraction plus?
From last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
After all the math.
Thank you.
Karen,
Yes.
the direct funding from the state now allows us to retain all of our property tax revenue?
We always retain our property tax revenue. There is a calculation in the funding formula that considers the local share that you can generate when determining how much state share you get. So it does use your property tax valuations into considering that.
Okay,
I'm not sure if I answered your question, but.
Tangentially.
All right, thank you so much. Agenda item number 7, the superintendent's report. Mr. Shiro.
Superintendent's Report A, resolution of condolence for Rhonda Landman. If I could have a Board of Education member
Yes, I
read
would
this
like
in their entirety.
Mr. Fowley to please read that in its entirety.
Where are we?
Item A, the condolence. Page 2.
I'm already on page 7. Resolution of condolence for Rhonda Landman. It is recommended the resolution listed below, extending the sympathy of the Warren City Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools to the family, friends, and co-workers, be approved as submitted. Whereas the death of Mrs. Landman has brought sadness to the school district and to the many people with whom she worked, and whereas Rhonda served this school district as a crossing guard and then in the food service department for over 17 years, she was a dedicated employee and, even more importantly, a dedicated mother to 2 Warren City School alumni. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Board President Patricia Lamperos, Vice President Regina Patterson, Board members John Fowley, Jacqueline Shannon, and Julian Walker, and the Superintendent of Schools, Steve Shiro, express their condolences to the family and many friends, and be it further resolved that this message of sympathy be sped across the minutes of this meeting.
So moved.
Second, you have a second?
Second, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, motion carries.
Second Superintendent's Report this evening. We have a couple guests with us this evening regarding Raider Pride Park, a concept that's been discussed in public session at the board over the last decade, with various Board of Education members, as well as more recently in Athletic Council. So I'd like to turn over the floor to Mr. Claudius for a few words and then further discussion.
Good evening, board members and school officials. My name is Mark Claudius. I'm the current treasurer of Raider Pride Park. As you may or may not know, we addressed the Board of Education 10 years ago with a proposal to build a lasting and enduring memorial that would enhance the Harding High School grounds and honor the staff and graduates of Warren Western Reserve High School. The school board responded positively by allocating a section of property facing Elm Road to be our site. For the past 10 years, our committee has been involved in many fundraising efforts to raise funds for the project. As you can guess, we have had our trials and tribulations. However, after much deliberation, we have decided to see if Mr. Chiro and Mr. Lacey could offer some input as to how we could complete our project. At a recent meeting of the Athletic Commission Board, Mr. Shiro made some suggestions that our committee is hoping that the board will adopt to bring our project to a successful completion. All parties involved seem to believe this would be the best path to follow. Our committee would ask the board to adopt this path that Mr. Shiro has suggested, and that we move forward with groundbreaking as soon as possible. I have presented each board member with a packet to review. Gilmore's in Cortland has designed the proposed project, and there is a small color design plan and a cost estimate provided by Gilmore's. I have also enclosed other pertinent information regarding our financial condition and some expenses that have been paid. Because of current trends, the Raider statue has been omitted, and a marble engraved monument will be used in its place. I sincerely hope the board will adopt Mr. Shiro's suggestions and that groundbreaking may commence as soon as possible. It is my vision to have a completion of the project to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Warren Western Reserve State Championship throwback game in the fall of 2022. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much.
Thank
If you want to stand by for any questions that the board members may have.
Okay.
We have not had a Board of Education meeting since our Athletic Council meeting, so I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. Mrs. Lamperos, Mr. Walker, you were part of that meeting. Mr. Nicholson, Mr. Lacey as well. In summary, we're talking about the area between the sign at the front of Harding High School and over towards the old high school facade, but not exactly in the middle. An area over there was dedicated years ago by the Board of Education to be used for this purpose. If you look to either the information I've provided, which was a two-sided item, I believe that was in your board book, cover page might have had some fluorescent pink highlights on it, or the information that was provided from Mr. Claudius, you can see a design of a sidewalk going from Elm Road, bowing with a center area, and then coming back and going towards the parking lot here at the school. The recommendation that I am making to get this project moving is that we take some ownership in this project, and the committee takes ownership in the project. The ownership that the district takes is to look to have the sidewalk put in between Elm Road, again, going around in according to scale or very, very close to it, to the existing parking lot. Being responsible for the sidewalk and out, which would be, if we go to scale here or the suggested drawings, 4 benches, running some lighting conduit from either the building or the LED sign, and then putting a couple trees on the outside as landscaping. And all of this design would be approved by the Board of Education or their designee, the Athletic Council, not only what I'm suggesting, but also having executive control over when the committee gets the monument in place, which is, if I'm correct or not, correct me, more of a replica of the prior building when you talk about sitting on a cement slab over there. And then the committee would be responsible for that and everything inside the sidewalk, whether it's the bushes, if they align it on the inside, the slab, the building, etc. And so I'm looking that we go into this, splitting the project to get it completed, to get it moving. We have our commitment, we get that area first. That enables the committee to have a groundbreaking, continue their fundraising with the focus, and again, and give them the opportunity over the next year to try to hit that goal of having it completed for fall of '22. That's my recommendation. I think there was consensus with Athletic Council. We believe that would be fair, and we want to see this come to fruition.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. That was a excellent synopsis. And Mr. Faulkner, you will remember, our former long-standing board member, Mr. Faulkner, when they first came to approach the board 10 years ago. And I just want to commend, your group, because you've really stuck together and have really, tried very hard to, make sure that this happens. And I remember when you did approach us, and the board at the time, boards change, and that's why we wanted you to come here to speak to the entire board. Mrs. Patterson, of course, was, around back then as well, so she's aware of it. But for our newer board members, Mr. Walker, of course, Mrs. Shannon and Mr. Fowley. So we just wanted everyone to be brought up to speed to the project and that. So if everyone, does anyone have any questions, I guess? Yes, Mr. Faulkner.
I would just comment, it's an example of good things happening when you don't give up.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lacey, Mr. Shiro, Mr. Claudius? I think you're okay, right? Do you have anything? And are you in agreement that we...
Well, we need to proceed. 10 years is enough.
10 years is enough.
Thank you, board members.
We like that. Okay?
Well, I guess since we have the green light to continue to move forward, that is exactly what we'll do.
Yes.
Mr. Lacey and I will continue to work with Mr. Claudius and their team, representatively speaking, We will continue to go through athletic council and periodic updates to the Board of Education as a whole, just as we do with all of our projects.
Excellent.
And obviously,
Yes, the banking,
the banker.
yes.
Thank you.
So do you have anything else that you want to share?
No, we're
Okay.
thrilled that you're willing to go along.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here and sharing this, with us and the community. That's wonderful. Yes.
We have worked so diligently to get this done. We have just been hard at it. We've had little money, we've had lots of money, whatever, it's just getting there. We're thanking you for your time, we're thanking you for your patience with us. It's just a real great feeling to know that the school is no longer there. Oh, we're still here.
That's right. That's right.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And
And
again,
you're,
you guys,
and you're free to go. You don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting.
but you're
You can-
welcome to
whenever
stay.
you know. Oh, you are welcome. Have a great
little
evening.
confused with the Panther mask, though, I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Nice meeting you.
Oh, no problem. Take care.
You're welcome.
We'll talk to you soon. All right, we'll see you guys. Thank you.
You can take your time. It's okay.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in this evening. We'll see you soon. Thank you. This time I'd like to go to the third superintendent's report of this evening. Before I turn the floor over to Coach Penny, we have a student we'd like to recognize for qualifying for state. This recognition was sidetracked for a while due to the meetings being closed, and I really didn't believe a virtual recognition was the way we wanted to go for one of our star athletes, so I'm glad we were able to do that this evening. However, before I turn it over to Coach Penny, I'd like to bring to attention of the board some of the success of our program. On Saturday, September 11th, Coach Penny has informed me that the Warren Harding boys team made program history this fall by winning the 2021 Ray Sweeney Cross Country Invitational. This marks the first varsity team in our program history. The boys team scored 37 points, beating Garfield High School by 8 points. Warren G. Harding also won the individual title, with sophomore Nate James taking the championship. The following are additional results of note. Sophomore Nate James, first place. Freshman Sebastian O'Brien, third place. Senior Kelly Cashwell, 8th place. Sophomore Gene Grant, 12th place. Freshman Jacob Borsick, 13th place. Sophomore William List, 18th place. And freshman Derek Hall, 20th place. This is pretty impressive because these students are going to be coming up the ranks over the next several years. And to me, this is just the beginning. So with that, congratulations to Coach Penny and his cross-country team.
Yay.
And Coach, I'd like to turn the floor over to you. And Mr. Nicholson, if you like.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, we're our track and cross-country coach, Mr. Charles Fay. He's here to recognize a special student athlete that did something very special last June.
And he will recognize her at this time.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me through this mask. First of all, I want to thank the Board of Education, our Superintendent, Mr. Shiro, our Business Director, Mr. John Lacey, our then Principal, Mr. Dante Capers, and our Athletic Director, William Nicholson, for allowing us to recognize this special individual. And when I mean special, you're going to find out shortly how truly special she is. Not only was she the only female athlete in the entire school to compete for a state title last year, she was honored in another category, which I'm going to bring up later, which is more important in my mind than what she's actually being honored for tonight. Ms. Nevaeh Parisi, I would like to honor you with the Board of Education Exemplary Athlete Award for your participation in the girls' long jump last year in the state track and field Division I state track championship. Congratulations.
Yay.
Now, I know Nevaeh, she does not like to talk about things. That's probably the most words you're going to hear out of her for ever. But here's what makes me proud. Not only is she a senior this year, we have her back. She works hard in the classroom. She works hard outside the classroom. She works hard at practice. She's one of our exemplary student athletes, and I say student first, that's what it is. You're a student athlete here in Warren Harding, and we take pride in that. So she works hard in the classrooms, taking AP courses. She works hard in practice. She goes to job. She works hours at work, making things happen for herself and her family. And she was recognized as the OHSAA, sorry, I get a little, this is good stuff here. Carrying a 4.2 GPA, so the state doesn't recognize above 4.0. So you have to clarify on a 4.0 scale. So she got certified as a 4.0 GPA. She was ranked as the first team academic All-Ohio athlete for Warren G. Harding. So congratulations. To me, that takes the cake. Because all too often you hear about, all the stories of good athletes and what could they be. And here's an athlete that's a great story and what she's going to become. And she's going to become a very positive person and represent the school and the city in her future. So congratulations, Nevaeh. It's a pleasure coaching you for yet another year. And we look forward to this next year. And I have to say, this makes it now 21 straight years we've had an athlete compete in state championships.
Beautiful.
So awesome job.
Beautiful.
Thank you everybody very much. You going to say anything, Nevaeh? There it is.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, thank you for being such a wonderful role model. Congratulations. And you too, you as well. You don't have to stay. Thank you so much for coming out.
Congratulations again.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the fourth superintendent's report for this evening is COVID-19 and enrollment update, two different topics, but I do wanted to share some information because it does involve our students and student enrollment and COVID-19. So I'm going to start with some good data that I have for you. I received information from the Trumbull County Health Department through Trumbull County Superintendence the other day. Mr. Capers and Ms. Hartzell oftentimes receive those communications as well. And we received numbers of individuals that were vaccinated at the Trumbull County Health Department Eastwood Mall Vaccination Clinic from said date to said date for students aged 12 to 17. Mrs. Hartzell, Mr. Capers, you guys receive that, or did I just get that? Okay, I apologize. So I guess this is going to be a good news surprise as well. Out of all of the individuals that were vaccinated at the clinic, Warren City school students aged 12 to 17 represented 40% of all of those vaccinated at the Eastwood Mall. Again, I don't have those exact numbers with me, but when I looked at all the school districts around Trumbull County, it was great because we don't have 40% of the students. When you figure out all 20 school districts, we are the largest. But it was great that of all the numbers, 40%, a little more than 40%, were Warren City school students. That's some great news. Not so great news. In the Tribune Chronicle today, on the top of the front page, it listed information regarding students identified with COVID and reported on the state dashboard and adults. Not surprising that information was incorrect, and I have made notice to that, because it reported student cases, and again, our student cases are reported a week after because of the reporting deadlines that we receive. So the student data may have been correct, but again, if you're looking at today's newspaper, you may be looking at what the numbers were on September 7th. what they reported on September 7th. Well, that really doesn't provide a lot of good data, but that's as accurate as it can be. It was also reported that there were no staff cases. That's simply not true. And I just want to go on the record and say that because we properly report our information. The way it goes, if a staff member is identified to be positive with COVID, they're required to notify my office. Tracy's the COVID coordinator. Tracy gets that information, reports it to the Warren City Health Department via email in a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is shared from the Warren City Health Department to the Ohio Department of Health, and they apply it to the dashboard. We have nothing to do with our reporting stops as employee tells us, we tell the Health Department reports to ODH reports publicly. So the fact that it said there were 0 staff members, that wasn't the case. Since the start of the school year in early August, our staff started reporting in COVID cases, I'd say around the 12th or 15th of August. I put an email communication out reminding them school's starting. We need to be diligent and be aware of what's going on. We were not required to report to the state until the 7th of September. So far, since the beginning of August, we have 28 positive cases for staff members of COVID-19.
Did you say 20?
28.
28. Okay.
28 cases. Many of these cases were breakthrough cases. Individuals that were vaccinated and had mild symptoms. Also, to note, I'm very proud that even from our beginning onset of the spring, we had over 80% of our staff members participate in our vaccination clinic. So we have a high number of staff members that participated in receiving the vaccination. And there's been more ever since. Of that 28, those that weren't vaccinated were sicker, including hospitalizations from time to time. Those that were vaccinated didn't fall into that category. Moving on to students. We have student data from 9/7 and 9/21. Thus far, we have 19 reported cases across all 5 buildings within the district, a total of 19 cases when you add up the 5 buildings. Again, that information was reportable starting on the 7th through the 21st, so that's over the last 2 weeks. In each of these cases, whether it was student or staff, we followed the reporting procedures. If an individual was in a classroom, everyone in that classroom received a paper copy of our notification. If it was within the school, we put it on final forms via the email account our families provided to us. They're emailed a notification for that day that building that there was, and we have 24 hours for which to make those contacts. That has been done with 100% on our end. So in each of these cases, families have been notified consistent with the expectations from the state of Ohio, ODH, local health officials. Is there any questions thus far? One last thing I'd like to add is there's been some question over how can this letter say that no one's a contact? Well, if you have a universal masking policy and you're maintaining 3-foot social distancing and not within that for 15 minutes or greater, then you're not a contact. Also, upsetting to some parents along the way, and I want to be real clear about this, if a child is vaccinated, the response is different than if the child was unvaccinated. With student athletes, as Mr. Nicholson knows, a vaccinated student athlete that was in contact gets to continue to participate, and one that isn't is typically reported to the health department and facing quarantine. So with that, is there any questions regarding our COVID-19 information?
I do have, how many employees do we have total, just roughly?
Wendy, last time we looked at it was over 800. I'd say about 825 at this time because we've had some recent hirings.
Okay. And you said 19 positive students for the whole 5,000 that we confirmed.
Yes, and that's the thing that we find out with positive cases. We find out from if the health department informs us or if a parent informs us. And in both cases, parents and, or not students and adults, we need to see the positive test result.
That's
because
good.
the test, the kind of test and the manner of test determines if it can be counted. So it has to be a PCR or antigen test. If it's a rapid test, has to be with a proctor involved, and if it's not, it doesn't count.
Gotcha. What percentage of our students are vaccinated, do we know?
We do not know,
Okay,
because that information is not required information.
gotcha.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I think 28 staff members and 19 students is really remarkable.
Yeah, I would definitely
It
agree.
shows that wearing masks works.
I have to say, as I communicated to our staff, and I know you see the emails that go out to the staff, I put a couple weeks ago out to our staff, that with, our number of students in the district and our number of employees, it reports that every day we have over 5,500 individuals interacting in and around the Warren City Schools. That is larger than a small community.
Yeah.
Every day. So again, if these numbers, they are as we are aware, and that's how we report them, and we stand very strong by these, but if we're not informed, and if we can't get a documentation from a family on the test, obviously, if we work with that family, but sometimes the families aren't forthcoming and just leave their children out of school.
Can I reiterate too, our policy, especially when it comes to athletics and the vaccinated, unvaccinated, that's in accordance with recommendations from local and health officials and the CDC. It's not something we're just doing willy-nilly.
Correct.
Because we feel like it's what we're doing in the best interest of the community and the students in accordance with doctors' recommendations.
Correct. Every procedure that we have taken has been the recommendation of our local health officials. There's not been a single decision in a year and a half that we've made that has been contrary to that. I work very closely with John May in his office. We have a strong relationship with Frank Migliozzi in Trumbull County. Again, my support team here, we are on every call for the duration. We're aware of the case rates. We're aware of a lot of information that goes on, and that guides our decisions. We try to work collaboratively across multiple school systems, but that can't always be the place. For example, just as masking mandates have come in different districts, but we are making our decisions based upon the facts before us. We are being cautious in every case that we can. We're erring on the side of caution, and we believe we're being proactive to the best we can to a virus that requires you to react.
Yes. Well, thank you. I know that this is a very controversial subject across the state and neighboring states as well. But I thank you and the administrative team for taking this very seriously and for working so closely with the health professionals to make the decisions that we do. I have a niece and nephew that are in high school over in Pennsylvania, and they have just gone remote because they're in a district where masks are optional and not required, and their numbers are so high that they just shut them down. That is what we're trying to avoid. We want our kids in their seats with their teachers in our buildings. So, I think if we just stay the course, we're doing a good job, and I think our numbers reflect that.
Yes.
And I have to say, being in the buildings, generally speaking, the students are doing a great job as far as masking. There's exceptions to
Good.
that everywhere you go, but generally speaking, I believe they're doing a fine job, especially where the adults have the expectation firmly in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enrollment. So I just wanted to give a brief summary of enrollment. I have to say enrollment is looking strong across the Warren City Schools. At this point, our enrollment is fairly consistent with where it's been 2 and 3 years ago, give or take 50 students. At this time of the year, it is still hard to determine the exact number of students. We still have some no-shows. And again, our goal is not when we have a no-show, when we find a vacant house, our goal isn't to withdraw that student from our records. That student becomes a dropout. That student becomes missing in action. Our goal is to find that student, try to figure out where they are, where they locate, where they pop. So we have numerous things in place to do that. So we still have students on the roster that haven't necessarily been in school. But I do want to say our kindergarten class is larger than usual, which we anticipated because a number of families didn't send their children to school last year. And currently we have 408 kindergartners. And you've heard me, this is my 8th year saying, I expect 400 kindergartners in Warren City Schools. Yes. I've said that every year, and some years it's a little light of that number, but this year it's a little north of 400, so that's consistent with our expectation. Currently, we have 296 students in preschool. We have approximately 40 students on the waiting list, and our capacity is around 320 to 330, so our preschool classrooms will be full. We have the requirements for Step Up to Quality that we have to follow, so we can't have students in the rooms until they meet them, shot requirements and others. It's very rigorous. So once that is all completed, we anticipate to have our 320 in preschool. Looking at our building enrollment, believe it or not, Harding's a little down in enrollment, and Lincoln is down in enrollment. Lincoln is down in enrollment, and I will say Lincoln's numbers are the lowest it's been since the building is open.
Wow.
Yeah,
Really
it's
and truly,
always been our-
it is the truth, you know, looking at the numbers. And to the point that I remember Lincoln used to have 6 sections of every classroom, 27, 28 students in a classroom. I will say we have about 5 sections of every grade level, and I believe in first grade we cut it down to 4 sections so that we could accommodate 6th kindergarten. But the kindergarten wasn't there. The 6th kindergarten was at McGuffey, which has higher than usual enrollment. McGuffey's enrollment right now is at 855. So McGuffey has very high enrollment. Jefferson's is up since last year, and Willard's is up since last year. So Jefferson, Willard, and McGuffey are up. McGuffey with the highest number, and Lincoln is down. But overall, when we add in our numbers of preschoolers and where we're at with kindergarten, I have to say that we are within 50 students of where we have been in the past, and that number could be closer to 20 or 30, and it does fluctuate. Fluctuates on a daily basis. But I have to say the hardworking principals, secretaries, liaisons, teachers have done a nice job to have this. I will say that our Ed Choice numbers are also down from in prior years. I believe about 20 or more awarded applications, and I think we also received a number of students back from STEAM. Again, both of our schools that I'm referencing within the city limits of Warren had 5-day-a-week instruction last year, and we went on a hybrid model, and I believe a number of families did hop there for a minute, and I believe a number of them did come back. So is there any questions regarding enrollment? I know, Mr. Fowley, you had asked a question of me regarding kindergarten numbers, and I can tell you that with adding the 2 kindergartens, because we added one at Willard, again from a first grade over there, and then we moved 1 first grade teacher from Lincoln to McGuffey, our class size is about 21 to 22 in kindergarten. We have 19 kindergartens. We haven't had 19 kindergartens forever in this district, and we recently hired educational assistants. We were using 1 educational assistant in the pre-K or in the K through 2 grade spans, and our goal was to add more. We had, I think, 3 good candidates, possibly 4. Also hired another educational assistant for a special education student. So we are looking to build that additional support in the primary grades.
Okay, any questions?
Do we expect Harding to be down this year, or was that a fluke, or just a little down?
It's unpredictable sometimes how the high school goes, because it's not that the students are necessarily going somewhere, but a lot of families are leaving the area. And as the demographics are moving up, you know, again, the high school includes a grade that was the first 3rd grade reading guarantee grade. And when that happened, we had a dip in a grade level of about 75 students. Prior to your tenure on the board, and Mrs. Lamperis, I know you're aware of that. So right there, you know, we have a gap of where students went elsewhere because they were retained by law in the 3rd grade. And so that grade level is still here at the high school.
Okay. Mr. Fowley, did you have something?
Well, I know that that the entire administrative team has been very proactive in hiring. I mean, you were on this after the first of the year, and the board was passing hiring starting at the March meeting. And I don't know how much further ahead you can get, but as you drive everywhere, there are hiring signs, and our enrollment has been strong. If you had 10 more well-qualified candidates, would we be hiring even more?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we hired all of the qualified candidates that we believed were high quality.
Okay.
And in the process, we even lost some that ended up having job opportunities in places that were closer to home, and they have moved. for that reason.
No, it's just with strong enrollment, and I know you guys were on it early. I mean,
Yeah,
what more can
it's
you do?
steady. I mean, there's been years when there's been a significant loss. There's been some years there was an uptick. It's holding steady.
It's good.
It's holding steady right now.
Very good.
Well, I believe that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
And thank you very much, Mr. Shiro. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is the Board of Education Committee reports. Athletics, Mr. Nicholson.
I have no report for this evening.
Thank you. Other than a hard-fought game on Friday night.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
excellent, excellent. They're working
Yeah.
hard. They really are. All right. Financial advisory,
No report.
no report, but are we going to do something?
We're in process of scheduling it, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Board policies and guidelines. We don't have anything, Mr.
No,
Walker?
no report.
Okay. I don't have anything under legislative, and we do have a surprise guest in the audience. In person, for one night only. Former Board of Education member, current TCTC Board Representative for Warren City Schools, Mr. Robert Faulkner. Please step up. Step up. Yeah, come on up. Come up to the microphone. We're so happy to see you,
It's great to be here. This is like home.
right?
29 years and 29 days I spent here. So it's great. First of all, I do have some exciting news that I want to bring to you from TCTC, and you heard it here first. TCTC is excited to announce their new 9th grade Innovators Academy, starting fall of 2022. Let me tell you a little bit about this. It's accepting only 50 9th grade students who will spend 9th grade and 10th grade in a STEM program with fully immersed academics. Now, many of you remember that was always one of our discussions that we needed to start our children early in these programs instead of waiting until they were in 11th to 12th grade. This gives a chance to do that. And plus, it's going to be, STEM type program. So I'm excited about that. It's one of the things that we have been working on, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you for all you do about sending wonderful students to TCTC. And they're doing a fantastic job. I know you know that because you get the reports. And I am just excited and happy to be here, and things are going well. Peace to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. All right, so that will conclude our Board of Education Committee reports. Do we have anything under old business? Okay, anything under new business? Okay, with that, we'll move into the agenda. On page 4, item 1, Mr. Fowley, please.
Treasurer's recommendations. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the August 2021 board minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 5, item 2, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Monthly financial statement. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the August 2021 financial statement and short-term investments made by the treasurer during August 2021, Exhibit A, pages 38 to 39, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? Yes. Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 7, item 3, Mr. Walker, please.
2021-2022 co-curricular budget and purpose statements. It is recommended the resolution listed below establishing the 2021-2022 co-curricular budget and purpose statements be approved as submitted.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 8, item 4, Mr. Fowley, please.
Approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant appropriations. It is recommended the resolution listed below to approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant appropriation A be approved as submitted.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 9, item 5, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Appropriation Budget. It is recommended the resolution listed below to approve Appropriation Budget A be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 11, item 6, Mr. Walker, please.
Fiscal year 2022 Permanent Appropriation Measure, all funds. It is recommended the resolution listed below for the fiscal year 2022 Permanent Appropriation Measure for all funds be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. Moving on to page 12, and this would be item 1. Mr. Fowley, please. Page 12.
The graduation requirements? Mm-hmm. Okay. Superintendent's recommendations. Graduation requirements for the class of 2022. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the graduation requirements for the class of 2022 be approved as submitted.
Thank you. This is very important. All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 14, item 2, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Agreements, contracts, and/or leases. It is recommended the resolution listed below entering into agreements, contracts, and/or leases A and B be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. Okay, on page 15, item 3, Mr. Walker, please.
Declaring transportation impractical. It is recommended the resolution listed below declaring transportation impractical be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. And call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 17, item 4, Mr. Fowley, please.
Acceptance of gifts. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding acceptance of gifts be approved as submitted. And we want to thank Northmar Church for the 8 gas cards, value at $80, and also the Trumbull County Sheriff's Department for their 160 submarine sandwiches to Harding at an estimated value of $1,200.
Second.
Thank you. As always, thank you to our community benefactors in support of our schools. Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Even though I didn't get a sandwich, yes.
Mrs. Lamperos. Mrs. Lamperos.
Yes, and the motion carries. All right, on page 18, item 5, and that's going to be Mrs. Shannon, please.
Yes. Tuition reimbursement. It is recommended the resolution listed below for tuition reimbursement be approved as submitted.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. And on to page 19, item 6. Mr. Walker, please.
Personnel recommendations. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding personnel items A through P be approved as submitted.
Yes, that'll take you through to page 35. We have one retirement on page 19, Diane Holland. Congratulate her on her retirement, and thank you for your service to the district. And then we also have one military leave of absence for Zachary Cower. Thank him for his service to our country. And as I said, that goes through page 35. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, and the motion carries. Okay, moving on to page 37, and I apologize, but we did not have our sign-in sheet up in time, but I don't see anyone here for public speaking, so we don't have anything for that. And I have no need for agenda item 12, which is an executive session. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Yes, so moved.
You? So moved? That's perfect. That's what I want to hear. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
And Mrs. Lamperos?
Yes, the time is 6:56. Our meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Stay safe.